Hi guys, VTech here, Blueberry Hill. So here we are, Pop and myself. We're doing the wire pulling. Last video was doing all the EMT stuff, so now we're pulling all the 120 volt lines. Actually, we also pull the 240 for the welding. So the main wiring is all 12 gauge, and the welding wire is all number 4. And then for the lift, I decided to get something a little bit thinner than the 4, which is an 8, and that seemed to work pretty good. So anyway, pretty straightforward, straightforward pulling. Most of the stuff is at a waist height. Only the lights are up where you can see me right there, and that required doing some extra pulling and stuff. And we'll have some junction boxes to connect everything up. We're gonna have 3 sets of lights inside, 3 banks. So we have 3 light switches for the inside, 2 for the outside. There's 3 lights on the front of the shop and 1 in the back. And just for grins, I decided to put a switch on the one in the back, so whatever. But anyway, so we don't flood light everywhere. Anyway, here we are. We're getting the wires ready for the pigtails. I'm using. I was going to use Wagos, and I had a miserable failure with the Wagos this year. I don't know why. The connectors. The Wagos have a lever that opens up the conductor snaps, and for some reason or other, all the bottom ones were locked. They didn't open, so I couldn't even put the conductors in there. So we switched over to doing the simple push-in versions, and the biggest wire to put in those is the 12 gauge, and it worked just fine. We ended up going to Home Depot several times, of course, normal, and we ended up getting the 4-port ones, so we could put 2 sets of sockets onto the circuit. We're doing very simple, in my opinion, circuitry this time. We're doing 3 sets of circuits, and each socket outlet has 4 sockets on each one, all on the same circuit. Last year we ended up doing A and B and all that fun stuff. Man, whatever. I guess you can isolate the sockets, the circuits. I didn't see any real reason for doing that. I'm not going to be running crazy power through this. It's just you know, you have several things plugged in, you know, chargers and all that kind of fun stuff. So anyway, here you see me doing this is the actual failure of the Wago. Every time I tried to connect it, the wire wouldn't snap in. And then when I started looking inside it, you could see that the contacts on the switch, the little lever action, was not working. So we threw them aside and went over to do the next set that you'll see, which will be strictly the snap-in ones. We initially had 3-port ones, and then we switched to the 4-port for the rest of the install. Anyway, quick and easy. I like the fact that I don't like wire ties, never have. The bad part is we have to use wire ties for the 4 gauge and the 8 gauge just because they're huge, and nobody seems to offer a snap-in for that size. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. You know, it's just historical stuff and a little bit of how-to if you care, if you can see everything. But anyway, if you like, please subscribe if you want to, or like the videos, and we'll carry on. The container house will be starting soon. After looks like another 3 weeks, we'll have all the electrical done, including the power to the panel on the shop, and the meter will be probably we're working through it probably next week or 2, so we should have power very shortly. Anyway, thanks again. Ciao. Bye. So here you see me when I started doing the quick connects. The orange ones are 3-port. We had to do a little pigtail between 2 of them, so we can get 4 ports out of there, so we can connect all 4 pigtails to each other. Of course, one set of the wires is for the actual line feed into the power, and then the other ones are going to each connection on the socket: ground, neutral, and the hot. So this is Saturday. See what's the date here? It is December 7th. So here we are. We're doing the continuing the socket install. Pop was doing the leads and all that stuff for the pigtails, and I was doing the install of the sockets. Basically, when we pulled the wire, we made big loops that we basically pulled out of there. And now that I'm installing the sockets, I just cut the correct loop, and I install the pigtails via the quick connects. And here's the 4-port going in place. Fairly easy, right? You just take the conductor, ½ inch of it off on the insulation off of each conductor, and slide it into the thing. And I really like these because they have a visual little window you can see if you got the conductor in place. I've never been a fan of twist ties. I mean, it seems like the world's using them, but I've seen very carboned up twist ties. Not my work, just doing stuff in a normal house, and wasn't impressed. These are very positive. They shouldn't wiggle loose or heat up and get unwound. So anyway, that's what we're using. Seems like the way to go to me. So here's a quick peek into the panel. I'm doing like preliminary wiring for the left side of the shop, I guess. That's what I would say. I got the 240 and the lift wired on the 50 and 30 amp breakers respectively. Now I'm wiring the sockets and the light switch accordingly. So I'm putting all the neutrals on the top right of the panel, as you can see. That's obviously the white wire. And then the grounds all go to a ground bus that's on the very right, just near that the conduit. And then of course the hots go into simple breakers. I didn't get the CAFE breakers for the shop. They're kind of a pain in the butt in the shop, but we'll be doing that for the house for sure. But anyway, hopefully this is kosher. Trying to keep everything nice and tidy. I'm actually going to use some wire ties when I can find them. But anyway, you see me wiring up the breaker, etc. The next chunk of the video, you'll probably see me doing the 240s and the light switches. The lights actually for the light banks on the inside. And that will pretty much finish up the wiring, except for getting all the power leads into the shop. That's going to be probably maybe start this week or next, and hopefully we'll get the meter stuff going within the next 2 weeks. So coming up, you'll see me wiring up the last the switches for the shop. The electrical is almost done. I actually finished it up a day or two later on the 11th of December. I came in and finished up the Bobcat, and then I decided to do the 240 volt and then clean up the panel, or finish the panel and do all the breakers and stuff. Didn't really videotape it. It went pretty quick, so no point in that. But anyway, you know, 4-gauge wire's no fun to work with, so basically it was just kind of rinse and repeat kind of stuff. A little bigger than the number 12 wire you see me playing with here. And wire ties are needed. The wire nuts, I'm not a big fan of those because they go on and they seem to loosen up over time. But anyway, here you see me doing the quick connects. Pretty easy to work with. On this end of the building, we had wire left over from last year, so it's solid core. And then the rest of the building, we bought a braided wire, which is actually easier to pull through EMT, but a little bit harder to plug together. Anyway, it worked pretty good. So shop's done, ready for main power. Coming up in a few minutes here, you'll see me working on the Bobcat. I poked a hole in the fuel tank. There's 2 access panels that they didn't put the plates back on. Prior owners, whatever. And I sprung a leak, so I rigged up a jerry can on the back of the Bobcat, and you'll see me doing that. So I'm drilling a couple little holes for return line and the feed line for the motor. This is a 5-gallon jerry can. I'm just going to mount on the back of the Bobcat, and you'll see that in a second here. And basically, I'm just doing it as an alternate fuel tank, because it takes up to 12 to 14 hours to pull the motor and replace the fuel tank on the T190. Bobcat wants almost $3,000 for this, so I'm delaying the process. I'll probably do it myself in a few months when we're not using the Bobcat. Anyway, this worked out pretty good. The thing ran and didn't cause any problems. I did add a vent line to it. That was something I knew I needed. I didn't add it. After running the Bobcat for about an hour or two, the jerry can kind of sucked the sides in a little bit. So I fixed that and then added the vent line, and everything's working just fine. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll talk at you later. Bye. So the cool thing about this little external fuel tank, I didn't have to do anything except for disconnect the fuel line feed from the tank. You can see the ones on the top right there. They're just coming from the jerry can. Goes into that little bulb you see at the bottom of the thing. That's our primer bulb. And then the return line from the fuel injector rail, smaller lines going back into the jerry can. Very simple. Everything's still intact. Didn't have to butcher anything. And later on, a couple months, like I said, I might have time to do the engine, pull the motor, and replace the tank. And plus, it'll help me clean up the Bobcat. So we'll probably sell this thing when we're done, and sometime next year. So I'll make it look pretty and working properly. Anyway, thanks for watching. Later.